So tonight, one of the things we were pre-gaming a little bit is this like one-off debate between Ron DeSantis, Florida governor, and Gavin Newsom, gruesome Newsom, California governor. It's weird because they're both technically, one's officially second in the primary. The other one's not official, but is unofficially second in the primary. But it is a really good contrast of the choices that Americans have going into 2024. California and Florida, I mean, two states that are talked about so much as representing the left and the right. But there's more to it than this. I think it's a smart choice for DeSantis to do it. But I think that there is a line that you got to be aware of also. Because as we were kind of talking about, Democrats don't really have a bench, I think, save for one guy. And that's Gavin Newsom. And he's really been rising in, name recognition nationally the past couple of years for good and bad reasons. And then there was something interesting that I saw from Jennifer Van Laar, who is the managing editor at RedState. And she had a very intriguing piece, and she was tweeting about this. I didn't realize that Democrats had really changed their bylaws regarding the replacement on the presidential ticket. That's kind of interesting. So throw that in the mix, and this takes a whole new appearance, doesn't it? Jennifer joins us now via Skype. You can find her at redstate.com and on X. I almost said Twitter, on X. Jennifer, thanks so much for joining me. You are really insightful in this because you're a California resident, California native. You've been there following politics. I think more in the conservative sphere about Gavin Newsom and his history, I think, than anybody else in commentary. You caught this, that Democrats changed their bylaws, and he's a very ambitious person. He's making all the right moves. What does that tell you? What do you see going into this?
Well, there's a couple of possibilities, especially as we see Joe Biden's poll numbers continue to tank and the Democrats are going to get desperate. We all know that they want to keep Kamala on the ticket because they don't want to upset the Black people, the Black women especially, and they don't want to lose the White House even more. So there's going to be some difficult conversations, I foresee, and whether it comes as a contested convention or whether it comes as replacing Joe Biden due to, quote, disability after the convention, I believe that Gavin will be on the ticket.
Ooh, and this is like especially a thought that's like really been growing. And then the Democrats changing their bylaws. I didn't really see a lot about this. This kind of seemed like it slipped under the radar.
Well, they don't want to signal their plans too much because they want to have that element of surprise. But they have in their bylaws where, I'm going to read it, in the event of death, resignation, or disability of a nominee of the party for president or vice president after the adjournment of the National Convention. And here's how they go about it. The national chairperson of the DNC shall confer with the Democratic leadership of Congress, the Democratic Governors Association, and then report back to the committee on who they want to fill that. So we know how the Democrats operate, and we know that they, even if it didn't have wording like that, they could still twist it to make whatever regulations say that. And that seems like a pretty easy way to get Biden off the ticket if he has more of these episodes and then they just stop ignoring them and actually calling them what they are.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We're talking with Jennifer Van Laar, who is the managing editor over at RedState. She's been following all this stuff with Gavin Newsom. And you've been warning Republicans, too, saying, look, you're playing with fire. You cannot get too comfortable with this guy. I agree with you. I don't think that because we kind of see, because obviously we're conservative and we look at this, especially those of us not in California, we're like, gosh, how could he be an attractive candidate to anybody? But he's old money. He comes from very powerful families in California. They've forgiven him a lot. I mean, this was the guy who was dining at French Laundry when everybody else had to stay home. And then we're going to talk a little bit too about some of the baggage in his personal life, but it doesn't seem to ding him. And so talk to us a little bit about this. I mean, are Republicans aware of what they're inviting?
No, I don't think they're aware. And part of it is because Republicans across the country have this mindset of California's just weird. Let it fall into the ocean. Ignore it. They're stupid. They voted for this. And part of the reason that he keeps getting in is because the media doesn't challenge him here at all. And they bury his stories for him. And so that you have that to deal with. And then when conservatives don't pay attention, I had a bunch of stories back in the spring where Gavin Newsom let people die in the mountains. They were snowed in for 2 weeks, and it was a Republican area. I was trying to make this into Gavin, his Cancun moment, like he used to pick on Ted Cruz about. The conservatives just said, whatever. And I'm going, you've got to help me amplify this, because otherwise you're going to end up with this guy in the White House.
And now here we are. And because he has so much baggage. Just the mistakes that he made with the high-speed rail stuff and the boondoggle with that, that would tank anybody else coming from any other state. But there's a whole apparatus there to aid this guy, to help him. Because really, who else do Democrats have besides him?
We know it's not Kamala. She's failed on a big scale. Pete Buttigieg. Come on. They don't really have anyone. No,
they don't have anyone. We're talking with Jennifer Van Laar, and you can find her at Jen Van Laar on X. So changing the bylaws, he does seem like he's running a shadow campaign of sorts. He was and I get, as governor of California, when he welcomed Chow Dong-ping, or however Joe Biden said his name at his speech the other day, when he welcomed Xi Jinping to the state of California. I get it. As governor, he's there. But he wasn't just there with Biden. Like, he welcomed him by himself with his wife. And it was a very big deal. He was more front and center than any other governor that I've ever seen that's welcomed a foreign leader in their state before. That and his, visits to Florida and his trips and media stunts elsewhere. It seems like he's really running a shadow campaign, and that the Biden team is kind of aware of it. But what gives here? It's so weird.
It is weird. And not just him welcoming Xi Jinping, going to China and having one-on-one talks with him and negotiating climate accords between California and China. I don't even think that that's really legal, or it's something that he should be doing. He's not an official representative of the United States government. Why is he over there doing that? And Biden just looked the other way, because the Dems know Biden is not in any way capable of having those kind of trips and talks with people. So I think that all of it is really done on a calculating basis to get the public to see Gavin Newsom as a statesman.
Ooh, that is a really good strategy that they're doing. And it makes him, because he can form a sentence, immediately he comes off as looking better than Biden. And if he doesn't have name recognition, doesn't that kind of work in favor of him if people don't know all about him elsewhere? Because then they don't know all of, like you were talking about, him letting people die on the mountain, his, the crime rate, the money spent on a rail system that never happened and really should have never been proposed. But they don't know about all of his offenses.
Right. They don't know that 15 years ago in San Francisco, he said that he would have homelessness solved in 10 years. So he's obviously failed at that. Yeah. They don't know that he's the one that brought George Gascon into San Francisco, that he and George Gascon authored Prop 47 together, which is widely credited with making our crime rate skyrocket here and letting people out of prison. They don't know any of that. And a lot of it's been wiped from the internet, but I'm working hard to find all of it.
And you're doing a really good job at it, too. Speaking of which, this rolls perfectly into finding this. I was reading this part the other day. This blew my mind. So we talked about the whole Harvey Weinstein, Rose McGowan thing when it happened. And we talked about Jennifer Newsom at the time. So this is Gavin Newsom's wife. I thought Hillary Clinton had an unlikability factor. I feel like his wife is really trying to challenge that. Like Hillary may have met her match in someone who is more unlikable than her, if that is a possible thing that can happen. So she apparently was trying to pressure, according to your reporting and from what you got, everything that's out there. You even got like their conversations they had, the messages, the fact that Jennifer Newsom was trying to get Rose McGowan to kind of back off some of these claims because of her relationship to the law firm that was representing Harvey Weinstein. And then when she didn't, she had this whole safety net of, well, I also was targeted by Harvey Weinstein. And then that became a huge story that obscured the fact that she was trying to basically bully Rose McGowan out of telling the truth about Harvey Weinstein. And there's even more to it than that.
Oh, right. And it's funny because, Rose McGowan, to go to her and say, well, what can the law firm do to make you happy, AKA shut up? Like, that's not the person that I'm going to go to with that kind of thing. Right. It's not going to work. But it has worked for Jennifer Newsom in the past, which is why she went that way. Because back when Gavin was mayor, he had an affair with his appointment secretary, so an employee, who was also his best friend's wife. And the best friend was also Gavin's campaign manager. And so that comes out. The woman didn't go to the press. She told her husband, admitted the affair. And then the husband went to Gavin and called him on it and quit. So this all comes out. And Jennifer Newsom goes to the San Francisco Chronicle and says, well, you know, she was really the culprit. Then when people hit back on that, she goes and writes an 802-word comment on a blog post.
I love how you said it was like E.E. Cummings style. She was just full of passion.
And she says, oh, it was just times that she showed up passed out on his doorstep, like insinuating some kind of date rape or that he was having sex with a passed out drunk woman, which is a whole other kind of terrible thing for him.
Wow. And nobody's talked about this. Nobody.
And this thing is still up. I found it online. It's not like I'm just saying this occurred and I have no proof. There's screenshots.
And anybody else, it sounds weird to say this, anybody else, their political ambitions would have been immediately clipped, but not Gavin Newsom. Not even with all of this baggage. I don't even know how this would play out as he becomes more known on a national stage, which is what we might be seeing tonight. I wanted to talk to you about this as well, because I think in some respects, I feel like DeSantis is trying to get ahead of it, and he wants to pick a fight with Newsom just to kind of, you know, maybe get some shots in, body shots in on this guy. But I don't think that he's ever debated anybody like Newsom. Now, for all the ways that we can make fun of Newsom and how much hair product he uses and his insane wife and everything else, there is also another reason why he's been in politics so long. He can be amiable when he wants to be, and that can come across well to voters without them realizing his backstory.
Right. You even have seen in the times that Sean Hannity has interviewed him, and Hannity came right out and said there's an LA Times story where Hannity says, yeah, we had an immediate connection. We hit it off. And so if you're not kind of hip to that kind of how narcissists work thing, then you're liable to fall for it. But the thing that DeSantis hopefully knows is, and by watching some of Newsom's interviews with reporters, he gets upset very easily. And he has a glass jaw, basically. If you know where to hit, Newsom will just completely lose his cool, and he could have a viral moment of just looking like a madman, which is, I think, if I'm Ron DeSantis, that's what I'm going for.
That's a really good point. And apparently Newsom, I saw this today, I think it was Twitchy that had, I think Twitchy had it, and I think you talked about it too, how apparently Newsom is using Nikki Fried to help prepare for the debate tonight. So he's gone to all the baddies in Florida Democrat politics to help him prepare for tonight.
Well, I mean, Nikki's not had such a stellar track record, so, good luck with that, Gavin.
Yeah.
But if he's going to use people like that and maybe try to use some underhanded, below the belt tactics, I kind of hope he does, because I don't think DeSantis would be the first one to do that. But if Newsom goes there, then that opens the door for DeSantis to have.
And that would be, and honestly, that's kind of what we want to see. We want to see some of that. Jennifer Van Laar, you do such a great job. We'd love to have you back, especially as we see how this Newsom thing develops. I mean, Jennifer's the go-to authority on this issue. So we appreciate you joining us today, and thank you for doing what you do. You work hard, and you deserve the credit for it. Thanks so much. Good to see you.